Hello and welcome to Hexed Encountered. I'm Joe. In this video, we'll be doing a first look at the brand new game, Panzer North Africa. This is from GMT Games and is designed by James M. Day and Fernando Sola Ramos. And it is the latest in the somewhat long-running Panzer series that goes back quite a ways, actually. But this one is a monster. I mean, look at the size of this. It's a big box. It is heavy. Like this, if you drop this sucker on your foot, you might get a broken toe. This is a big game. And it is, as I mentioned, the latest in the long-running Panzer series. Now, this one, obviously, centered on the fighting in North Africa. So you are going to get some British forces in this one, Italian forces, and of course the Germans. But just like the other games in the series, and let me center this up a little better, you do have your basic, advanced, and optional rules, as well as solitaire rules, which were introduced in the fourth expansion to the Panzer base game. Now, unlike the expansions, which were, there are 4 of those, this one is a standalone, so it actually is another base game, basically, like the first Panzer was the base game. For the 4 expansions that followed, this one is standalone, so if you don't have any of the Panzer games, you don't need them. You can get this one if you're only interested in playing North Africa. So I have done some videos on Panzer, specifically the 4th expansion, which was the Battle of France in 1940. So that was an interesting one. This one's obviously a little bit later, and it's in North Africa, so really looking forward to trying this one out. But the point I was trying to make is if you're interested in the Panzer series and don't have a lot of knowledge about it, you can watch those videos. And there are many other good videos on YouTube about that game. So this is a 14 and up, 2 or more players. Takes more an hour or more. The unit scale are individual tanks, vehicles, towed guns and aircraft, infantry squads, half squads, and sections. So this is a combined arms tactical game, basically squad level. So it has everything. And it's an excellent system. Like I said, it's been around a while. You can see the complexity is at a 6. Now, it varies a little bit. The basic game is very easy to understand. And then obviously you layer on the advanced and the optional rules, and it can become, somewhat complicated. But it does have a built-in solitaire module now that you can employ. And there are some solitaire scenarios that are included in this as well. And so it does have a solitaire suitability rating of 9. All right, so what do we have in here? 6 double-sided 10 by 27 geomorphic map boards, 12 map boards total, 8 full-color counter sheets, 49 double-sided unit data cards. That's what these are. These are unit data cards. 45 terrain overlays, 5 charts, tables, and reference sheets, 1 basic rulebook, 1 advanced rulebook, 1 playbook, 1 TO&E booklet, and 4 dice. So let's crack into this and see what's in the box. This is a big one, like I said. This box is large and heavy. This is one of the heaviest games I've ever had in terms of weight. I can't even get the box open. Here we go. All right. So here are our map boards right up at the top. Slide the box back. So as you can see, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, as you might also expect, if we open one of these up, so they are, as it said on the back of the box, they are pretty long. They are oriented in a kind of lengthy fashion. And so this would be map 29. So they do mate up with the other maps, although the terrain obviously is a little different here, this being North Africa. But you can see, you can put a little plexi over this, flatten it out nice, and then you can mix and match, just like with any other geomorphic system. Mix and match them to make various battlefields. They are all double-sided. This one obviously has some elevation elements on it. This would be map 35. So I won't go overly much into the maps themselves. Just know that you're getting 12 map boards, which is plenty of play space. Now here's our TO&E manual. Now if you haven't seen one of these before, basically it is what you might expect. It's a TO&E. So you go into, the armored brigade. and what comprises that, and so on, right? So you would go through, and they have all kinds of different things in here, and you have your flag kind of in the background here. It's like a watermark kind of thing that will show you what nation we're looking at, right? Here we have some Italians as well, and Germans, and yeah, Germans. So I think I might have said maybe Americans would be in here, but this is obviously before Torch, so there are no Americans as far as I can see. So we do have our rule books here. We have the we have a lot. There's a lot of reading material here. Let's put it that way. So look at all of the books that you get with this game. Now, you have 2 scenario books. So let's just put these in the order you probably would want to handle them. So that would probably be something like this, right? So you can see it's a lot of reading material, but you don't necessarily need to read all of it, at least not to get up and running. Eventually, the more you want to do with the game, then the more of this you'll get into. But rest assured, you can read the basic rules and play some simple scenarios, get a feel for things, then start layering in the advanced and the optional rules to get more out of the game. There is a ton of game in this box. So we have our basic and advanced rules. So your basic rules run to about page 21. Then you've got the introduction to the advanced game. That's going to bring you all the way out to page 61. And then you have a glossary, an index at the back. I'm not going to overburden you with looking through the rule book. It's a pretty standard GMT rule book. It's well illustrated, so you do have a lot of information on what all the counters are and how you prepare to play, your sequence of play. The basic game is relatively straightforward. It's armor only, and then you add in infantry and other things as you get into the advanced game. So that would be your basic and advanced rules. Then you have your optional rules. This is much shorter. This one runs 23 pages and introduces things like morale and hidden units and things with turrets and mines and minefields and collateral damage and all kinds of things that aren't in the basic or advanced game. And so here at the back, you can see there's tank crew size. You have leaders that are in here as well. So you can see there's a leader section. This is one of the cooler things that is an optional rule, is to use the leaders for the various nationalities. So here you would have German, Italian, and British. Here we have our playbook. So these are all your scenarios, and then you even have some solitaire rules in here as well. And you have, at the back, we have summary charts of, so you have point values of units. So here's a scenario. Here's your solitaire rules. And at the very back, you have a bibliography. But you have some designer notes from Fernando Sola Ramos. And here's designer notes from James Day. And he talks about the evolution of the game, because he's the original designer. And so he mentions that he traces the roots back to the original Panzer Armor and 88 games by Quinto, and then MBT and IDF by Avalon Hill, and so on. But here you have the summary chart for all the various units in here. So you have all your various British tanks and so on, including Shermans and Stuarts, which are, of course, American tanks that were probably at this time lend-lease to the British. So lots of stuff in here. This is a very detailed system if you take everything. Then we have our scenario books. So in there was kind of a description, I think, about how the scenarios work, maybe. But in here, we do have scenarios, and they start at scenario 47, which covers, obviously, this being in the newest edition. There are 46 scenarios in the previous volumes. And here you can see your geomorphic maps. This one uses 34, 31, and 29, laid that way kind of vertically. Here we have an Italian setup, your British setup. And then you have scenario 48, and you can see this one takes place in June of 1940. and so on. So there are plenty of scenarios in here, I believe. Yeah, we've got 58 here at the back. "61 A and B from Operation Battle Axe. The retreat back to Egypt, north of city Suleiman, Libya, June 17th, 41. Here's a map showing the locations. So that's kind of nice. And then scenario book 2 has more scenarios, including things from Crusader, Battle of Gazala, First and Second Alamein, the Tigers roam Africa, Crusaders in a strange land. So that, again, there's a lot of stuff in here. There is a lot of game here. All right, now what else is in here? We have some terrain, some punch-out terrain for your maps. So there are some overlays, I guess, right? There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. As I mentioned, there's a lot of game here. 6 of these, so that's a lot. And then you have your counters. Now these are the if you have the previous games, these are all pretty much what you would expect. I got the player aids here at the bottom, just trying to move those back. So we'll look at those in a second. But here we have our counters. They are big, well-defined, easy to punch out counters. Here are some Italian forces, as you can see. Some M1340s here, M1441s down here, M1139s over here. Here are some of our leaders. The rules will obviously explain what all of the symbology means, or the letters and numbers. German leaders. And the British, I'm assuming, are on a different sheet. Yes, they are. Here are the British on counter sheet 2. So you can see the Matildas, the Crusaders, Grants, Shermans, etc. Here's some Stuarts, some light tanks. Here are our leaders. They are double-sided. So here's the other side of the counters. And we have some German forces, the usual suspects, some Panzer I, all the way from Panzer Is up to 3s and 4s. Some trucks. Yeah, Panzer IV, Panzer IVDs. And some more Germans here. Some Panzer Jaegers. Some armored cars. And then more British. Valentines. Carriers, trucks, etc. Now here we have our infantry. So these would be infantry from the 3 nations. Then you have some control markers, Axis and British. And then we just get into the markers. So obviously when you buy the base Panzer game, the old one, the original, you would get these, but they were not in the expansions. This time, because this is a standalone, that you only need this game, you'll get all your markers as well. So, yep, here's the fire and move markers, Overwatch. You can do short halt, fire and move. Commands. You give your units commands, and then you execute those commands. Here are the turret counters for facing, which is one of the optional rules, I believe. Victory point markers, and all kinds of, and assorted other markers, smoke, rubble, etc. Turn marker down here. Again, all double-sided. So your turn marker has the British on one side and the Italians and Germans on the other side. So as you might expect, there are player aids. We have a vehicle data card here. This will explain what all the cards mean for each of the units. And this can get pretty in-depth. The combat system takes into account the range, the size of the gun, the type of ammunition, as well as the armor rating of the unit being fired upon, whether you get penetration, etc., etc. It's very in-depth and very well done. And so you can see you have a leg data card here on one side, vehicle data card on the other side. Every unit has its own data card, including, as we saw here, infantry units. Here we have a toad data card. So your guns, your towed guns. This would be an 88 flak, as you know, the famous 88 flak. And then we have a track here on this side. The turn track, the transport and summary track, and the hidden unit track. And then we have over here, if I can get it out of the box, we've got the aircraft data card. So there are aircraft in this game. Like I said, it covers basically your entire combined arms. So you have your aircraft and your artillery on that side, and then another track on the other side, which is pretty much the same thing as the one we just saw. Then these are duplicates because there's one for each player. But here you have all your charts. So you get your combat results, your fire modifier, your armor piercing hit modifiers, hit charts, the number of hits, the penetration, unit grade modifiers. So your units have various grades. As I mentioned, this is a very well-developed system that covers a ton of things. And on the other side, we've got our terrain effects, your spotting ranges, the sequence of play, and all kinds of things with cohesion and anti-aircraft and aircraft and buildings and what effects buildings have. And there are 2 copies of this, as I mentioned, one for each player. Now, here we have our cards. So there are a lot of these as well. So this is the German stack, I believe. Well, there's Italians in here, so. But I see we've got British here and more British. These are British, so maybe this is, well, I'm sure they're all kind of mixed together. I have not looked through here yet. You saw me take the shrink off. So they're 2-sided, and you'll have different units on each side, and they have a code so that you can easily find them when you're setting up for a game, depending on what your unit mix is. So obviously this is the PSW 221 and the 221. And then on the other side, you have the PSW 222. Well, the 221 SPZB 41. Then we've got the 231 and prime movers. Got a flak, a couple of different flaks. Let's find us a tank here. There's the 88. Okay, here's an Italian tank. We've got the M1340. So you can see we've got, here's your offensive information. So the range, so how far away is your target from point blank all the way out to extreme or extended. I forget which one it is. Then you have your damage based on what it does. No damaged, damaged, knockout, brewed up, I believe, if I remember correctly. It's been a few months since I played the game. And then you've got your different types of ammunition, from general purpose to armor piercing to machine gun, basically. And then your defense, right? So is it front or rear, or is it front side, rear side? And then turret front, turret rear, hull front, hull rear. So a lot of different. And then, you know, basically the level, rise, and fall of the shot. All kinds of things taken into account here. So these are obviously all of our Italians. And again, some of these, at least not the Italians. The Italians are a new addition to the series. But your Germans, there would be Germans that are in the other game as well, of course. So now if we break out some of these, I might have to remove this to get at them. So these are British, more guns. Here's a German tank. So here's a Panzer 1B. And you can really tell by looking at these, the differences in your armor and your guns. The Panzer 1B is kind of a, you know, it's armed with a general purpose machine gun, which really does not have much effect on anything but infantry. And then you go all the way up through the 2, through the 3G, 3J, the 4D. So here you have the 4D, and you can see it's got a 75 millimeter gun, armor piercing. It's got heat, and then it's got general purpose as well. Panzer IV F1, and then you've got artillery, German squads, half squads and sections, mortars, heavy machine guns, and anti-tank. We've got a Tiger here. Oh, I didn't realize we have a Tiger. Available from late 42 Tunisia. So I suspect, that there will be an expansion. maybe, because in looking at the scenarios, and granted, I didn't go through everything. I don't recall seeing anything in Tunisia, and that would also involve the Americans in late 42, most likely. But you do have a Tiger tank here, which is interesting. Then we have the Martyr and some more of our armored cars. And back to the British. And over here, I'm sure we'll have our British tanks. So here's a Mark 6B. And here's our cruiser, the Daimler Mark 1. Here's a Mark 2 cruiser. You can see the 2-pounder for its gun. Crusader 1, the Crusader 2. And it's information with, it's got some decent armor on it looks like, as you might expect. And artillery batteries, here's British squads, half squads, and sections. So you can really compare and contrast. This one has really good armor. Valentine 2. The Matilda, the Grant, the Morris, Humber. And of course, these are double-sided, so you will have something on each side. Universal carrier. Here we are back at the beginning, I believe. This is where we started. So yeah, there are obviously a lot of units in here. And that is pretty much everything that's in here, aside from our baggies that GMT generally provides in its games, as well as our 4 10-sided dice of 2 whites, a black, and a blue. So that, my friends, is what is in Panzer North Africa. This is a ton of game. This is a good game. It's a great system. I really like it. The addition of the solitaire rules, which I believe Fernando Sola Ramos was responsible for, in tandem with James Day, as far as putting that together and adding that to the game. So that made its debut in the release prior to this one. That would have been expansion 4, the Battle of France that I mentioned earlier. So as you can see, there is a lot in this box. Getting it all back in is going to be interesting after. The nice thing is there are obviously counters and so forth, but well, I shouldn't say the nice thing is, because it's gonna struggle to get back in this box probably, but I think it's doable. So here you go. One last look. This is a little longer than I thought it would be, but like I said, a lot of game in this box. So Panzer North Africa from GMT Games, designed by James M. Day and Fernando Sola Ramos. I hope you enjoyed the look at the game. If you did, please like, share, and or subscribe if you are not a subscriber already. If you are a subscriber, I greatly appreciate that. Thank you for your support. I will be doing a playthrough of this game. Not sure when. Could be a month or 2. I've got a lot of things that I want to do, but I am planning on playing this and doing some videos on it because I really do enjoy this system. You can almost certainly expect to see this in Tanktoberfest 2024, which is obviously not until October. But yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. So thank you as always for watching. Feel free to comment if you have anything to say, and I will do my best to reply. That will do it for now. My name's Joe. This has been Hexed Encountered, and until next time, as always, happy gaming.